Welcome to, hopefully this isn't a crazy meltdown video. I haven't done one in a while. I think I did one recently. I did one when the Lakers got all their free agents and I was pretty high. This is going to be a little bit different. Hopefully I don't overreact too much. This is going to be the video of the Lakers meltdown, their terrible series, and what happens next. Free agents, because that's how the Lakers got to do it now. What does this mean for the roster going forward? They obviously, spoiler, won't have a draft pick this year because of the Anthony Davis trade, trading 47 draft picks. Lakers have never really built that way. I know they've had some draft picks, Magic Johnson, Kobe, but it's mostly been signing, trading, and what have you. So, like I said, I'm going to try to stay measured and get as much off as my chest as possible because I know a lot of my friends aren't going to want to hear me rant for 30 minutes about this. So, like I said, I know this was going to be a good platform to do this. So here we go. This team started off very confident, and this was a very good team on paper. It was pretty much done like a fantasy basketball roster in regard to, like, it didn't matter how chemistry was. It was just like, wow, you have this guy and this guy. It's like, oh, on paper, this should be a good team on paper. This championships aren't won on paper. They never are. Hopefully I don't say this too much in the video, but the Lakers in closed off season played the furthest outside of the Heat, and then it was 74 days, the quickest turnaround in I think any four major sports in the history of sports, from offseason to starting the season, and it's an older roster. I mean, we're going to make no bones about it. Nuggets dealt with it, Heat dealt with it. I'm not making this as an excuse, I'm just telling you what happened. So that was an issue, and, they were never... How many games did that roster with AD, LeBron actually all play together? Probably less than 10 games. If you think about it, if you add the McLemore, Andre Drummond, all those pieces, I mean, Ben McLemore doesn't really have that much of a role into it, but Trez and Denny, probably 10 games if you combine them all. And, by the time... you hear all the interviews from the Lakers are like, oh, we're not worried. Anyone we face, we got them. We feel confident, and at some point you like that because they're confident about their skills and talents. But the other side, when they keep on saying it and keep on, they're like, okay, it's just not a good look when it's like you have to eventually deliver. The West doesn't stop. The West doesn't care if you have injuries and stuff like that. It's going to keep on going. And the Jazz have played very well. The Suns played very well. I had a friend of mine who was like, "Oh, the Lakers have an easy path," and I just kind of looked at him like, "What are you talking about? If they were to get out of this series, they're going to play either a tough Portlander or a Denver team. Portland looks really good. I don't care about Jamal Murray's injury. They still look very good. Michael Porter is going to be thanking Jokic every day for that very nice contract coming up to him very soon because, he was drafted, had some back issues, plays with Jokic, and now he's going to make some good money. So that team's still good without Jamal Murray. And, the West didn't stop. They didn't care about injuries. They just glad you got them, and kept on moving on, and it's just one of those things where it's like, the Suns were not this Turkish team or just random pile of misfits. They were a good ass team. Monty Williams is in running for coach of the year. I don't think he should win it, and it's not me being salty that Lakers just lost. I think Thibodeau, with what he had around him, Julius Randle and up and down Derrick Rose, R.J. Barrett, and that's really it. And go to the 4th seed in the East. I thought that was really impressive. But for Monty, I mean, that team is loaded. That team is just, shout out to him and the staff and everything like that. I mean, they're just so loaded. I mean, Chris Paul, Aiden, Devin Booker, Bridges, Jay Crowder gives you toughness in threes. Saric even. I mean, goodness gracious. Campaign and Cam Johnson even. It just keeps on going. It just if someone tweaks an ankle, they're not even worried. They have other people just going right after the other, like a conveyor belt. It's just very impressive how deep they are, and it's a testament to the structure of that team and the building of that team. And I knew, like, the second they got Chris Paul, I'm like, yeah, they're going to be really good, because you were starting to see signs of it last year with Ayton and Ayton and Booker, and then it's really blossomed into what it is now. So yeah, I knew it was going to be a tough one. Everyone kept saying, "Oh, the Lakers have the advantage." Look at what they did last game. AD was with Ayton, or AD was playing the Suns. 42 points. And I just kept hearing it. And then that, changed my narrative. Like, oh, maybe the Lakers do have this. Well, game one, the advantage was gone because Ayton destroyed AD. And it's like, well, I guess that huge advantage mismatch, is over. There's no huge mismatch. So, I think the overblown before the series of like, wow, the Lakers have this series was, I think, fairly overblown because of the people who were on the Lakers. I get it. AD, LeBron. And I'm going to get deeper into the Lakers roster. Don't you worry, AD and LeBron. Let's just do it now. Like I said, on paper, looks like a great team. In the history of the Lakers, this is going to go down as like that 03 or 04 team that had Karl Malone and Gary Payton, and on paper you're like, wow, this is a good team. Well, there was chemistry issues. They made the finals, but they lost in 5 to a very defensive-minded Pistons team. That was the first toughest loss I took as a Lakers fan. So. And then now it's all coming back, several years later. This team was anointed champions before they even won anything with Dennis and Montrez. I'll tell you one thing about Frank Vogel. He loves power forwards probably more than his own life. It's unbelievable. He's got Montrez and Andre Drummond, who can play the 4, and AD, who's obviously played the 4, and LeBron, who can go into the 4 at times, and Markieff Morris. I'm like, do you need all these 4s? I mean, a couple would be fine, but it's like a little bit overkill. My biggest thing with this roster is there's not a consistent scoring guard. You can give me Denny at times, Dennis Schroeder. At times, a lot more consistent than Rajon Rondo or Danny Green. But we're gonna get to the free agent soon of how they can improve this roster. But there would just be moments. Well, this also factors into Frank Vogel too. I'm not gonna ask for his firing, but it's like clogged toilet offense, where it's like you'll see like the little lower third graphic on the bottom. Lakers haven't scored in 4 minutes. And you see that quite often when you're watching Lakers game with Frank Vogel. Or like Dennis hasn't scored in 2 minutes and 30 minutes, and he's on the court. It's like, wait, where's Dennis Schroeder? Kind of has a little bit of that Andrew Wiggins vibes in Minnesota, where it's like, wait, is he on the court? Oh yeah, he's been on the court for 5 minutes. He hasn't scored. Just kind of goes in and out in games at times. One game he scores 25. The next game he scores 5. And but the Lakers gave him a very fair offer several months ago, 4 for $84. He turned it down. Don't really know who's going to give him more money. The Lakers have always treated players well, with a golden parachute to Kobe. They re-signed, or they signed LeBron to a nice offer, gave AD a nice contract. I mean, for role player plus, a role player advanced. He's not a star. Role player plus. That was a very fair contract. So I don't know two teams at the top of my head. Maybe the Kings, Knicks, that would give him more, but best of luck to that. If you keep looking down the lineup, AC, Alex Caruso, love him to death. Was a two-way player. Spends half his time G League and NBA, and nice story. You hear about it. Every time he dribbles the ball, it's like, okay, that's about enough. We know the story now. He's very defensive minded. I'll be honest. This is not to be a homer. If he was getting starter minutes on any other team, he might get some all defense love, whether it be first or second, probably second team. And that's not being a homer. He just doesn't get enough minutes to get that, all defensive love. He's just a very inconsistent offense. Like, you're lucky if he scores 8 points. You're doing a parade around the city if he scores 8 points. So there's an issue with that. Kyle Kuzma. Everyone was just, Kyle Kuzma has arrived. Well, of course he's going to arrive in a random January game against Orlando or Detroit. Look at what he's doing without LeBron and AD. Well, yeah, that's great, but how are you going to do it in big, ball busting moments in the playoffs? And he was pretty much MIA. That was discouraging. It was discouraging that Lakers fans, people who bet on the Lakers, the media were like, oh, LeBron's going to save him. So LeBron's going to save him. Why would you expect this from someone who had a short offseason, year 18? This isn't 07 LeBron beating the Pistons. This is a much older LeBron. He's not going to be doing this all. Now, he had spurts. I think it was game 3 when he had this nice 3-minute stretch and he was just going off against Jay Crowder. He had stretches. But he's not going to do this for a whole game anymore, a whole quarter. That's gone. That ship has sailed. It might come back, but I have a good feeling that it's going to be gone. It's gone. That whole quarter of LeBron has scored 23 points in this quarter. That's gone. Going into year 19 of LeBron. Promoting LeBron James into watch Space Jam. I'm sure it's gonna be a good movie, but I don't care about this right now. And the people are gonna be like, oh, you care about LeBron's legacy because you're a LeBron fan. That could be further from the truth. I'm not even caring about that right now. I'm caring about what's going on with the Lakers. How can they improve this, and how can they get better? I wasn't thinking when the Lakers we're losing. Oh man, what does this mean for LeBron's legacy? Could Michael win this game? I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about why are the Lakers so awful and why are they bad? It's another thing they have to figure out is why didn't they trade Tyler Horton Tucker? Now, from the reports that I've heard, there was something in place. I don't know how deep the conversations were. Kyle Lowry to the Lakers. The Lakers didn't want to give up THT. I'm sure there was going to be some other stuff involved too. I don't think it was THT straight up for Kyle Lowry. But you mean to tell me a playoff-proven guard who can score a lot more consistently than Denny would have been? He would have helped out immense. He would have been huge for the. I'm not going to say with Kyle Lowry we waltzed past his Suns, but he would have definitely helped that for sure. So that didn't happen, and THT did a bang-up job in this series. So, I mean, it's a tough stretch. People are gonna say, "Well, you had a championship last." I don't care about that. I don't care about they're really gonna say, "Oh, you won because it's a bubble." And the Clippers lost, and you had an easy route to the championship, and so this is just proving all the people that are like, oh, Looks like the Lakers weren't good. Even when they did improve, they still weren't good. And I said this from the beginning. I sound like a crazy person now, but when you lose people who were great chemistry-wise, JaVale McGee and that whole team last year was just great chemistry. They really bonded. You could see stuff that they were doing in the on the sidelines and stuff like that. They really bonded. And I'm not saying this team didn't do that, but you saw a lot more of that last year. Losing those two was big. No one was really going to talk about that, but you're seeing what JaVale McGee does at times for Denver, and then Dwight coming off the bench for the Sixers. You know, they play big roles off the bench. You know, so, and then Marc Gasol, like I said, he had moments, but I rather would have had a cheaper version of those two. All right, I talked about the roster. What needs to be? Oh yeah. One more thing. AD. You know, he's always getting hurt. He's one of the 5-6 best players in the league, but you know when you're always getting hurt, you can't prove. I think Charles jokingly said "street clothes Anthony," you know, because he's always in street clothes, always getting injured. So, you know, and he signed this big contract. It's, you know, at this point, it's an immovable contract. You know, no one's going to want that contract. I'm not going to say it's an awful contract, but he's got to get healthy. Is LeBron going to get any healthier with, you know, with time off now and a full off season to rehab? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, whether he has an off season or not, he is still going to be year 19, no matter what. No matter if he has a shortened off season, a full off season, or mid off season, it's still year 19. So that also played into a factor. Okay, now that we covered the roster, let's take a look at a little bit of the free agents, people that they can go after to improve this roster a little bit. The first one I'm looking at right now, I'm putting up Spot Track. It's a website that looks at free agents and contracts for all leagues, so shout out to them. I'm looking at free agents right now, and the big one, if Denny was to leave, Dennis Schroeder, that is. The first one I'm looking at is, now he's going to be a little pricey of the role player plus type players, is Tim Hardaway Jr. This guy is an instant scorer. He hits the three ball really well. And that's another thing to mention. The Lakers at times, well, I would say most times, when they were getting in 3-point shootouts or they were down, they always wanted to go to the three. When that's never been their bread and butter with LeBron and AD. They've always been like in the paint, destroying the paint, and that's what they've been good at. You know, they kept on just, you know, going to the three ball. And I get it, Ben McLemore, Wesley Matthews are good at times, but you know, they're not going to shoot at a scorching clip. And I just don't understand why they just keep on going to that well when it's mostly dry. So that's one that I would really target, is Tim Hardaway Jr. He's going to be a little pricey, but like I said, he can score at a consistent level at the shooting guard role. He's going to be an upgrade, and that's something that the Lakers would, I would say, be focusing, is Tim Hardaway Jr. Now, let's preface this. I would be pretty stunned if the Mavericks don't re-sign him, because he's a really good scorer playing with Luka. As you've seen in this series with the Clippers, he's been pretty dead-eye. And, you know, when there's been moments that Luka's been double-teamed or been on, you know, Kawhi or Paul George, dish it off to Tim Hardaway, and he's made a lot of those shots. So a lot of that is like, oh, contract year, he's just trying to get his numbers, and then he's going to, you know, be a fat, happy cat and be abysmal. That's really the risk you have signing these free agents. That's why you have to do your due diligence and make sure you're not getting someone who continues to play at a high level even after he signs that big contract. I mean, he's still making $17 million, so if he's fallen off, the fall off should have already started. But he's playing at a high level, so that's someone that I would probably go after. You keep on going down the list. Evan Fournier, Kelly Oubre, backup for LeBron as a small forward, maybe. And then you start, James Johnson, Cody Zeller, JJ Redick, maybe if Tim Hardaway Jr. doesn't work out. But he's getting old in the tooth, but he would be cheaper. DeMar DeRozan. And then you start going up the list for the really expensive guys. Mike Conley's going to be very expensive. Kyle Lowry is going to be really expensive. Just for reference, Kyle Lowry was $30 million this year, so he's going to be expensive. Otto Porter, Kawhi has a player option. He's more than likely going to opt out if they lose in the first round. So, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I don't think Kuz. I think Kuz is going to be packaged in a trade somehow. LeBron is going to be like, And I'm also not a fan of all these power forwards. I have like 47 of them, not 5, but and I'm not asking for anyone to get fired, but I do think he's got to make his. I don't expect their offense to be anything like the beautiful game that the Spurs had in the mid-2010s when they're just zooming the ball around and it looks beautiful. I don't expect that ever with Frank Vogel. You're every so often you get a clogged toilet and it's annoying. It really is. Clogged toilet offense. But I do want a little more of a fresher, more radiant offense, more original plays and sets instead of just like pick and rolls and screens like that. Just something more fresh. I feel like the teams are picking up on what we do because we've been doing the same thing since Frank Vogel's been here. So just something like that. And I haven't brought up the draft because, like I said earlier in the video, we don't have a draft pick because we gave up our draft picks for Anthony Davis. I do believe we have a draft pick for next year's draft. But yeah, we don't have one for this year's draft. And we haven't really built through the draft most years. It's been, like I said, trades, free agency. That's really been the Lakers' history. So. I gave out some of the names that they should be looking after. Once you start going down the list, maybe Kenny Olynyk because he's played pretty well, but Counter, it's been his free agent year, so maybe a lot of those numbers on that Houston team is pretty overly weighted because they're on a bad team, they're down by so much, and you look at a box, you're like, whoa, Kenny Olynyk has 24 points. That's most likely not going to. I'm going to guarantee you that's not going to happen most times if he's a Laker. Now, like I said, he's going to be much cheaper than those Otto Porter Jr.'s, Tim Hardaway's, Kelly Oubre, so on and so forth. But I do think that's something to look out for. Here's a sneaky one that I may be interested in. This guy has been shooting well. Seems like because I do fantasy basketball, and seems like every time when I have like a Keldon Johnson, who I had this year, or other players like that, this guy always goes off, and his name is Patty Mills. Now, he's a little older in the tooth, but he's pretty good from three, and he's a dead-eye shooter. He wouldn't be as low. Let's see how much he made this year. His last year, he made $12 million, so he'd be a little cheaper than those other ones, so that's going to be interesting. That'd be a sneaky pickup. I want nothing to do with Trevor Ariza. He gets traded so much. He's very old. I wouldn't mind messing around with Norman Powell. I don't think he wants to stay in Portland. It looks like they're going to kind of blow that thing up. So that would be also a sneaky get for the Lakers. He scores in bunches. One of my friends is a huge Raptors fan. When he was there, he always liked him because he scored a lot off the bench. So yeah, if you just keep on going down, Lou Williams, he's too old. Lonzo Ball coming back. He did sign with Clutch. Maybe, he kind of has that Jason Kidd before he found a jump shot. I mean, he's starting to get shoot a little bit better, but he does everything well. I mean, he rebounds, he distributes, he's a pretty good defender. You know, I think he's like, I can check this, but I'm pretty sure he was at 38% this year. Hold on, I know this makes for riveting video here. Let's see here, Alonzo Ball. Yeah, so he'd be another guy that I look after. Doug McDermott, he's a nice one. Who'd be at cheap. Avery Bradley, no. Lauri Markkanen, he's always injured. Always injured. Let's see here. Basketball Reference. Chris Dunn doesn't score at all. Yeah, so he was 37.8%. So this was his best 3-point percentage of his career. Now it's a small sample size, but 30.5% rookie year, 32%, 37.5%, and then 37.8%. So it was his best shooting percentage. He's getting much better over time. So, like I said, he does a little bit of everything. He does get injured at times, which is kind of an issue. But yeah, I wouldn't mind bringing JaVale back, but okay. Yeah, TJ McConnell's a very nice defender off the bench. Gets a lot of steals, can shoot some threes. I wouldn't mind that pickup. I mean, obviously, we're not the people I want to preface is the people I mentioned. I don't expect for the Lakers to sign all these guys. Maybe one or two. Or maybe they could sign 0 of these people I mentioned. But just because I mentioned them, I don't expect them to sign all these players. I want to make that loud and clear. All right, I think my rant's over. I want to get this out. I know a lot of my friends were gonna enjoy me talking for just over 27 minutes about this season, how it went down, how disappointed I am. But hopefully next year things can turn around and they can be in the mix again. I think they will with the moves that I think that they should make. They should be right in there. So hope you guys enjoyed this, and talk to you next time. Cheers.